I just read this morning how Des Moines has some building, 40-story building going up. Apparently, it was proposed at $170 million. There's going to be like a restaurant. There was going to be like stores in the bottom and this, that, and the parking garage and like apartments above. And it was going to be this great thing. And I think they proposed this. This was like, I don't know if it was proposed to the city, but it was conceived like, I don't know, 30 some years ago. And now the builders during the pandemic, which is perfect timing for this, because these scammers came to town. I don't know if they put these city planners into power. I don't know how long ago. It might have been 30 years ago, and they was talking to these people and said, we're going to put you in power, and then we're going to do this and that to this city, and we're going to run the taxes up in this city. And it's basically corporate communism comes to Des Moines, along with managerialized city planning through communistic strategy is also taking control. So what they did is there was some people in Chicago, these elitists they got over there, and they built some buildings there, and they did it. It was like a bet or something of these elitists. I don't know. It might have been world elitists or just this country's whatever. But they said they're going to build a building and they're not going to pay for it. And I'm sure this happens quite often. And so anyway, they went over there and what they did is they proposed a building. I don't know if it got ran through or not, and they might have got ran out of town. So anyway, whatever it was that they just like a lot of the stuff like franchises, like sports franchises, pro sports franchises go to a city, they build, and they say, oh, we're going to bring all this money to the city, and the city's, oh, okay, we'll back it, and the taxpayers are like, oh, this will be great, we'll go to a sporting event. And then it comes around that they're not any good, and the owners don't really care about it if they win or not. They're just in it they just wanted money, they wanted this, and they wanted the taxpayers to pay for it. And that's what a lot of these cities that they don't have winning sports franchises, that ends up on the taxpayers' shoulders to burden to keep this franchise in their city. And it's like, hey, if they're losing, see you later. I'm not paying for your loss, But that ain't how it goes. And the citizenry, they're like, you get the sports fanatics. Oh, I love that team, and they don't think about the money that they're going to pay in taxes and how each year it incrementally goes up with each different loss that city planners integrate into the system, where they're just going to be. It's almost like a communist society through corporate planning to get the taxes up to 70%. So this is how corporate communism is created in this country, along with political communism, which is just being backing the corporate communism. So it's just like, well, we're going to have big money come in here and show us how it's done, and we're going to help them by telling the taxpayers that they're owed us now for their mistakes, and that's how it's going. So anyway, this building is going up. They defaulted. What they did is they took these people that are now city planners, they took them out to dinner, said, we're going to build a building in your city and we're not going to pay for it. And the city planners were like, oh, that's crazy. And then they had this outline plan. And the city planners, they don't know anything about corruption, or if they do, it's like maybe they have some stuff that's they can hold over their head to make them do this, or maybe they're just like enthralled by somebody being able to, oh, you're in power, you really guys really know because you came from Chicago. Anyway, so they take them out to dinner, and they get these proposed city planners that they're going to put into power, They're gonna say, well, we're gonna back your campaign, and this is what you're gonna say, and this is how you get elected, and then you're just gonna do what we say. Well, anyway, so this 40-story building, 170 million bucks. They default on the payments. They're claiming the pandemic, which is perfect for this plan. It's almost like the government of China is in cahoots with other governments for this pandemic, so that other governments, it was like, well, now you can learn how to control your people through communist measures, and this is how it's done. But you got to act like you hate China. Of course, nothing's really happened. China's like, or all this stuff is in writing, and they say that all these people are, China's losing money, and they're doing, it's in on paper. Is anybody saying it doesn't help citizens any? I don't see our government getting it. I don't see our government getting any richer because they're having to pay money for China's having to pay money to us for this, that, or the other. I mean, if that was true, then we'd be coming out of debt, and it's if there is any money, it's going to politicians because they're the ones talking about it and this, but nobody sees it. It's just paper, and it's probably just a paper tiger. It's like, oh, we're roaring on paper, but nothing's really happening. So anyway, these people default on the loan. This bankers trust, which they're bankers, and they're suing the contractor, whoever it is, the investors of this project. They want to, or through the city planners or something like that. They're saying that they defaulted on the payments during the pandemic, and they're saying that during the pandemic they couldn't, this, that, and the other. But I haven't seen any building around here that has halted. I don't think construction is halted here in Des Moines. I mean, it might have in New York, but there might be supplies or something like that they're not. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So now the city said, well, we're going to sue you, or Bankers Trust said we're going to sue you like 48 million. I can't remember what the figure was. I just read it, but I don't know what million. Like 50 million bucks. Just say 50 million bucks. And what happened is the investor said, well, we're going to sue you $101 million for, or no, this they're suing the city $101 million for, I can't even remember what it was. They're like trying to pull the project or something like that. I think the same thing happened in Chicago. It might have been pulled earlier, but they still are saying that it's going to get built. So the only way that's going to get built is these people. If these people ain't going to pay for it in tax, this is like a pro team. This is like the pro team comes to town, and the citizens have to pay for its losing team. And what it is these people are showing this city and other cities that aren't, they're not like Chicago and LA and New York, how people do it. And they just go and you propose. It's just like unions. They go and propose something, and they underbid it to get the bid, and then after they get the bid, they go on strike for months at a time until everybody says, okay, we'll pay more money for the project, and then the union gets the project at a higher rate, which is what the whole thing was about anyway. But they got it, they went on strike, and so that's how they get it. So that's what's happening is basically this whole thing is in cahoots with each other, and there's still it's right now it's in a I don't know what phase of building it's at. I think they're working on the parking garage. I think is what they said. They're building a parking garage. So whether it stops there and there's no building, or whatever the intended thing was, they intended to build a 40-story building with shops and parking garage and apartments. So they're trying to build up the downtown, and this was that's what it was. They're trying to take the lot or something. They're trying to and these investors are saying, well, you can't have the lot. And right now it's in a fiasco, but I'll guarantee you there's 101 and plus the 50 million. That's the two sides that are suing each other. So that's 150 million on top of the 170 million that's going to cost to build it. So that's 320 million dollars is what this project's going to cost now, and it's going to be dumped on the city because they're going to say, well, it's going to bring money, and they'll just mill tax it because they'll say, oh, we'll just put it in the mill tax, this, that, and the other. Over a 50-year span, it won't even be anything. And that's how these cities are going to do. They're going to create corporate communism, raising taxes through all these mill taxes where they just, oh, it's just a little bit, oh, it's just a little bit, it's just this, and then you're going to be paying 70% in taxes. And that's how this corporate communism is going to take over the country, using the government, who will just, they'll never say that they're communism. It'll just be we'll just be a high tax country. They won't ever say they're communism because the military won't be driving through the streets. See, that's how they'll do it. They'll say, well, you don't see any they'll say, well, you don't see any military around here. It's just the failures of 50 years of city planners and local, state, and federal planners allowing corporate to take over this country at the taxpayers' burden, and because politicians don't know anything about business, and they're in awe at people that do know about business, but the business people are just like, well, we're just going to take people for a ride, and it's just a whole scam. And so that's what's taking place here in Des Moines. It's corporate communism and strategic, political, communistic agenda. It's disgusting. It's disgusting how these people, they allow, not they, because city planners don't care. They don't care about what the citizens, especially here. I've never known this city to do anything that the citizens wanted. I've never seen the citizens win anything in this city. Now, this might be bad to put over the internet because then it'll be like, oh yeah, well then we're corporate communists. We'll come into your city. We're going to build something. And so that's what I said in a video a couple years ago, that this city will probably be the first communist state, or this state will probably be the first, and probably might just be the city, first communist city in the country. Where I tell you, and all these other cities are like, their taxes are outrageous because, people are saying, well, I'm leaving the taxes, but it's this corporate communism has taken over these states. And so now the government is saying, yeah, we're communist, we're pro-communist, and they're just laughing like it's a joke, like you're supposed to, down the road, this is going to be funny to everybody that they're claiming to be communist. Here they are in power and they're claiming to be communist or trying to be pro-communist or whatever, socialist, whatever. But they're just all these people and all at other people because they have never done anything in their life but suck off the system. And they're like, wow, these people really know what they're doing. I got a college degree and I didn't know we could do that. I didn't know. If I would have known that, I would have, of course they wouldn't. They like a good front and backed by government and having police, so anything they do is going to be backed because they voted in a closed doors meetings. Of course they allow certain people in, but it doesn't matter if there's anybody else there. That the council votes on it. Do you ever see a raise of hands? And I've been to like one meeting where you could tell the people there, it was an agenda of these people to pass whatever, I can't remember, it was like 40 years ago when I first started voting. And it was like, wow, you can't even ask a question in this place because they just ignore you. Whatever you say, because they got the agenda of what they want heard and what they want said, and so to keep you from being heard, they just ignore you, and then they go to a vote of which they've already had people. It's almost like they pay people, or they just get a room full of people and say, we're going down to city quarters, and we're going to vote on this, and we're going to pass it because we're going to be the majority of people in this building because the capacity is uh, 50 people, and we're going to bring 30 of you, and so that'll be the majority. And that's how they pass this stuff. They get the majority of people. It's because I've never seen anything in this city that people said, "Hey, we don't want this," and that the people got what they wanted. Unless it's like all government, like they'll throw something at the people. Yeah, the government's like, they're not going to say they don't want it or they don't care about it, but they give it to the people to vote on, and then the people vote against it, and the city drops it, or they'll put it in someplace. I've seen that where the city vote or people vote against it, and the city just tucks it in under another bill, and it gets through anyway. It's like everything else. So the disgusting political agenda is constantly being contemplated here in Des Moines. So that's what's going on here. It's disgusting. City planners, they're not leaders. I wouldn't call them leaders. I mean, people that are naive would, but I don't.